Hello, and thank you for joining me for my full review of Robert Hardman's book, New King, New Court, King Charles III, The Inside Story. And it is actually the inside story, and it's much more than that. It really has given me a brilliant overview of the complexities of the whole institution that is the monarchy. And I've had so many wonderful insights, I can't wait to share them with you. I'm going to divide this review into sections, and the sections are going to be King Charles, Queen Camilla, Harry and Meghan, the Coronation, Prince William, and another sort of extra bit called Headwinds. Now you can go ahead and look in the description because I'm going to timestamp all those sections, so you can just skip to the part that interests you the most. Okay, so off we go. First off, I'm going to give you an overview impression that I had when I finished reading the book. Now, this was a more arduous task than normal because I was unable to access the text version of this book. I pre-ordered it on Kindle, but I can't get it in Australia to the 30th of January. Initially, they said I could access it on the 18th of January. That's been pushed back to the 30th of January. But to shore myself up, I had also pre-ordered the Audible audio version, and I got access to that yesterday afternoon. So after 14 hours overnight of listening to the entire book, I feel equipped to share with you a good review. Now, if you're a fellow YouTuber, look, don't use my work to base your reviews of this book. That happened to me a lot in 2023. You know who you are, and just know I'm watching, okay? I'm watching and I know. Don't worry, it's no one you know. Now, when I finished the book, I laid back and contemplated for a while, and then I got this vision in my head of when I was younger and I had been taken to an observatory. And as the universe was projected up on the ceiling, I became, at that moment, aware of the vastness of the universe and how I was only just such a small little part of that universe, significant and worthy, but small, nevertheless. And I got that impression after reading Robert Hardman's book. I felt like he managed to zoom me out to give me this big picture overview of the institution that is the monarchy, and also all the players, all the main characters that play their part within that institution, and also all the smaller cogs that work so hard to make sure that the monarchy stays on track, to make sure that the monarchy achieves its aims and stays within its boundaries. And it was fascinating. And I think it takes enormous talent to be able to paint that real zoomed out big picture. So I really loved this book. One of the really big picture views was provided by the examination of the late Queen's death and also the arrangements for her funeral and mourning and all that sort of thing, which was under the auspices of Operation London Bridge. Now, Robert Hardman takes us through all that in so much detail, and it is fascinating to see just how much hard work went into those preparations and plans. And you'll really enjoyed reading about that detail. The other thing I found fascinating was the fact that while everybody else was mourning and the extended family was mourning and able to think about what they missed about the Queen and their grief, King Charles III had to click straight into work mode, pretty much. Now, obviously, he was still mourning his mother, and obviously he had to bring that warmth and grief to his people so that they could feel like they were supported and shared in something. And I think he did that brilliantly. But when you see how many engagements and how many things he had to attend to, literally hours after his mother's death, it is astounding. It gives you a new admiration for the man. And you also see how absolutely ridiculous it was, Harry's little tantrum. When you see the enormous complexity of what was going on, and you have Harry and Meghan yet again making it about them, over-inflating their importance in the grand scheme of things, because in the grand scheme of things, they were not important at that moment. And Robert Hardman does not spell this out, but this is an opinion I have formed after reading the book. It is clear that the clear protocol to organise the transport to get to Balmoral to try and see the Queen before she passed away was under the auspices of the actual staff of each member of the royal family. So Prince William's staff reached out to Prince Edward's staff, or vice versa. I don't know who reached out to who. And Prince Andrew's staff needed to reach out to whoever. Okay, so it's the staff that reach out to staff that make, on the ground decisions, that coordinate what's going to happen, who's going to pick up who's going to go who on what transport, right? If Harry really wanted to get on that plane, all he had to do was get his people to reach out to Prince William's people, because that's what everyone else did. And Prince William's people were instructed to help anybody who wanted to get to Balmoral on that plane to get on that plane. Now, it wasn't Prince William's job to organise transport, and understandably, he didn't want to speak to his brother, who had just betrayed them in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Prince William had also been clearly informed that Harry was writing a book and the book would be published after the Queen's death. So he knew that any conversation he had with Harry over the phone about the Queen and about the Queen's imminent death would appear in his tacky little book. So he could not answer that phone call. It's no doubt in my mind that Harry did not want to get on that plane. He didn't have the courage to get on that plane. That is just subjective, personal opinion. I'm not alleging it is true. But I am personally convinced that he did not have the courage to face his grief-stricken family or his really angry brother on that plane. And that is why he didn't get on that plane. And then the mealy-mouthed, I won't say it, Prince Harry then twisted that narrative to make it that me and Prince William wouldn't answer his mobile phone so he couldn't get on the plane. Honestly, Harry, just grow up and go away. Over the 14 hours, I also got the impression via Robert Hardman that King Charles is a man truly dedicated to duty, a man who ensures that the main expenditure for any public royal event, like the coronation, is spent on securing public access to that event and also ensuring the public safety for that event. That is the main expenditure. That is King Charles III and the people that work for him's main goal, ensuring public access and ensuring public safety. And that is indeed, if you go back and look through the accounts of any major royal event, that is the main expenditure. So we'll kick off with Queen Camilla, and I loved all the snippets and things that Annabelle Elliott said, who is Queen Camilla's sister. Now, they are very, very close, and her intimate and personal observations of Queen Camilla really helped me to get to know her more. And Robert Hardman obtained these snippets from actually interviewing Annabelle Elliott directly. And it was fascinating. It was a fascinating insight. Some of the things she said was that Queen Camilla was a strong voice of common sense. And she described these delightful little tit-for-tats that the King and Queen have. For example, the King loves to have fresh air flowing no matter how bracing that air might be. And he will go up to the window on a freezing day and fling open the windows and everybody is absolutely freezing. Whereupon Queen Camilla will sort of sneak up behind him and subtly close the windows. And then King Charles will say, "Oh, you're closing the window." And Queen Camilla will say, "Well, yes, because everybody in the room is bloody freezing." And they'll have this sort of push and pull. But it's very good humoured and there's a lot of sort of joyous banter, but they can each hold their own. She also points out that they are opposites. They are polar opposites, she says, but somehow that curiously seems to make it work even better. And Queen Camilla is secure and happy to do her own thing and is happy for King Charles to go off and do what interests him, but they also adore spending time together, you know, pursuing their own interests, but being together in each other's vicinity. They also say that King Charles III is just happy around Queen Camilla and more able to fulfill his duties. And I get the impression from this book that King Charles III is joyously fulfilling his duties. Over and over in the book, you can see he is challenged and stimulated and excited and biting at the bit to do a fantastic job and to leave a profound legacy. And he even enjoys the red boxes. And actually the Queen enjoyed the red boxes as well. But he really enjoys it. He gets into it. He loves seeing who in the Navy or the Army or whatever is retiring that he has to sign off on. He loves deciding, you know, things like the Order of Merit. He loves all of it. And is really, really interested. And he's still learning the sort of the fine art of things that need actual signatures and things that just need a tick and things that just don't need anything. They just need observation. He's still learning that part. And yes, he still has frustrations with fountain pens and the fact that things get smudged. When you read the book, you will get a fascinating insight into Queen Camilla's upbringing, which Annabel Elliott, you know, reiterates. Beautiful family, lovely parents, perfect childhood. And so that has given her a solid foundation for the role that she is fulfilling. The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, gives Camilla heartfelt and sincere praise, not flowery, fluffy praise, but which you wouldn't expect from Princess Anne, but solid admiration. And the fact that she is fulfilling her role very well as support to the monarch. And I think she even sort of makes passing reference to the fact that she is doing a solid job, just like her father did for her mother. And so that is wonderful to read. And I'm sure that Queen Camilla feels rather chuffed because it would mean a lot from Princess Anne. This is a nice segue from Queen Camilla into Spare. Now, I'm going to get into Spare more when I talk about Headwinds. But one thing that did move me was just how much Queen Camilla was dreading the release of Spare. She genuinely, really, really was. And that's awful because to have to be newly crowned and then to be dreading something so profoundly and to be already pre-hurt by something is incredibly difficult. And really, Robert Hardman describes the rollout of all those things as really excruciating for the family. But they made a decision, a collective decision, to let their work speak for them. And I think that was a very wise decision, don't you? Now, one of the most interesting observations about Spare is that we all know that Prince Harry's main allegation against Camilla, before she even married the then Prince Charles, was the fact that she was colluding with the media in order to enhance her reputation and using him and William basically as fodder to enhance that reputation, feeding stories to the press. Now, Robert Hardman really dispels all of that because he says the only evidence that Prince Harry was able to produce in Spare was the fact that Camilla's first meeting with Prince William was actually leaked to the media. Now, Robert Hardman points out that Prince Harry is really lying by omission in the fact that he leaves out the huge investigation into that and he leaves out the result of that investigation, and that it was found that it was actually Camilla's personal assistant who had told her husband in good faith. That husband had had a game of tennis with an old school friend and had happened to mention it, which was probably ill-advised, but they were very inexperienced at this stage. And then that friend then talked to another friend that happened to work for the Sun newspaper. So Camilla had not deliberately fed or leaked any knowledge of that meeting, and her personal assistant subsequently then resigned. whereupon later on she was reinstated because it was discovered that there was no malice and there was no intention, and it was a stupid mistake, but it was a mistake that was unlikely to be repeated. So Robert Hardman really does lay all that out in this book. And he says that Prince Harry then provides no other evidence for that awful allegation. Now, on to Prince William. There's been a little bit of backlash in the pre-publicity for this book where people have implied that somehow this book is having a go at Prince William. I did not find that at all. If you take something out of context, you can construct that narrative in order to get headlines, but I did not find that. I found it really, really interesting, his observations. He observed that Prince William is not maybe as religious as his father or the late Queen, that he does not attend church maybe as often as they do. And he just makes a really interesting historical observation that there have been other monarchs that have been the same. He also points out that as heir to the throne, Prince William's church going and his presence at church services will increase. Whether he likes it or not, it's just a function of the role, and he may love it. It may be just, we don't know what he really thinks and feels about anything. But Robert Hardman is just making the observation that he seems to differ a little bit to his father in that way. And it's interesting. It's interesting. He makes interesting observations about how they are different. But one thing I will pick up from this book is he has admiration from Prince William. And I believe he has faith that he will do an admirable job when his time comes. Also, I've made some notes about things that he has said. I said, I found it to be an honest and truthful appraisal of the different styles and personality each man will bring to his duty. Now, he describes William as admirably grown up, and I think that is a great compliment. And he treats him as admirably grown up, his own man, throughout the entire book. He did point out an interesting little observation that the delay at the coronation, where William and Catherine actually ended up after the King and Queen, and they were supposed to precede them into the coronation, that he said that that was actually brought about by the fact that King Charles and Queen Camilla's carriage actually left a little early. So that's why they did have to sit and wait. And that did cause its own difficulties with security and order of events while they tried to work it out. Catherine and William were delayed even more because it had all been choreographed, their entry to the Abbey and then King Charles and Queen Camilla's entry to the Abbey. So it all on the fly had to be reorganised, and hence there was future hold-up. It wasn't caused further by Catherine and William. And he said that that was actually portrayed at the time as this sort of really huge conspiracy. And he said it wasn't. It was just actually a pure cock-up. Okay, so now we'll get on to the sulky elephant in the room, Harry and Meghan. Now, I get the distinct impression that Robert Hardman does not have a lot of admiration for the Sussexes. He lays it all out in exquisite detail. Now, I'm not going to focus on all the huge dramatic moments that have already made the press. You know them all. The Queen's reaction to the naming of Lily, other juicy little tidbits, Prince William's reaction to the betrayals in Spare. I'll try and concentrate on some other impressions that I got from the book. Now, an interesting observation was when King Charles was actually visiting in the first year of his reign to celebrate 40 years of business in the community, which is an organisation which forms part of a large part of the Prince's Trust, now the King's Trust. And what that is about creating equity and diversity in business, and it does it by actually taking business leaders into communities to actually observe what's really going on, to actually see how hard it is for minorities and communities to get a leg in when it comes to business, to even also to get promoted once they enter on the bottom tier, to be able to get promoted and to be able to have equal opportunity in the workplace. And also the struggles for entrepreneurial people that have had less fortune in their early lives, who are vulnerable, who might not have accesses to the services and the schooling and the education, yet they have brilliant potential, and how they can be helped to start their own businesses and expand employment in their own communities. It has done stellar work, measurable, stellar work. You can see all the outcomes over 40 years. It is a real thing. So there is King Charles celebrating 40 years of this amazing work. And where does the world's media interest go? To Harry and Meghan's pathetic Ripple of Hope Award. And where the blurb for that award, other than saying about institutional racism, which the King has been fighting via this community business enterprise for over 40 years, Archwell has dedicated themselves to equality, equity in the community for 2 years. 2 years. And there's no measurable outcome. No measurable outcome other than word salad. So, and that is where the world's media's attention went to, rather than real measurable outcomes that the King has achieved. Now, Robert Hardman points out that in the first 12 weeks of King Charles III's reign, he was bombarded with 12 weeks of this rubbish, relentless attacks, targeted attacks from Harry and Meghan's representatives and from across the pond, emanating from Melodramacito. It was really targeted. And to be honest with you, it's ongoing now. There are lulls when they get too much backlash, but it is ongoing, and I don't think it will ever cease. It does make you sigh, really. It does make you sigh. But I'll tell you one person that it doesn't make sigh, King Charles III. It doesn't. This book is not a pity party for King Charles III. Robert Hardman constantly points out that King Charles III believes that the work will speak for itself, that people will realise over time if he just keeps going, if he just keeps highlighting what matters. And he is cheerful, and he is encouraged, and he is empowered, and he loves it. So don't think that you are being represented, people of the UK and people of the Commonwealth, by this beaten down, sad man. That is so far from the truth. You really get the impression from the details provided in Robert Hardman's book that Harry and Meghan are really cosplaying philanthropy. And that if they really, really cared about any causes, they would spend their time shining the light on the important work that King Charles III is doing. Okay, they may not shine the light on the work that Prince William is doing because they're just too eaten up with jealousy and resentment and, yeah. And for Meghan, the man that got away. But they could highlight the work that King Charles III does because it aligns with everything they're supposedly interested in. Now, the interesting thing, these headwinds, as an aide described them, that affected the first year of the reign of King Charles III, haven't really done any damage. Robert Hardman points out that on numerous polls, the royalty, the monarchy, the royal family just stays level pegging. Occasionally they go up, occasionally they may drop a little, but generally it is solid It is solid and not really affected, even though all these things that have been thrown at it, designed to undermine it. And the only people that have genuinely been damaged or undermined are Harry and Meghan themselves. And to me, that is poetic justice. One of the things that did disturb me and make me a little bit sad was the impact that the Crown had on the last years of Prince Philip's life. He was genuinely distressed about the portrayal of his supposed role in the death of his sister in that plane crash, and he had nothing to do with it. He was 16. He was in no way responsible for that, and he was really worried. He was really worried that that distorted truth after he went would become the remembered reality. So I guess it's really important for royal commentators and royal historians to correct the record as much as we can, because unfortunately millions have now watched that series, and it does provide a really distorted and completely fanciful view of history. So Robert Hardman sums up the Sussexes with this narrative: the evil press, the hapless royal family, the scheming advisors. And he says it's a reverse fairy tale where the prince, and he does say for satirical relief, the princess, lived happily ever after by not being part of royalty. It doesn't make sense, does it? And that's why they never really succeed other than annoying people, and because it doesn't make sense. They're painting the portrait of this royal love story who lived happily ever after by removing themselves from royalty. I just think that was a brilliant and delicious summary. One aspect of the Sussexes saga that is still alarming the royal family is the fact that Harry's book lacked detail when it came to their wedding, their married life, and their eventual departure. Now, these major parts of their life took up less than 1/5 of Harry's book. Now, therefore, the conclusion is, by the institution, that there is a Meghan memoir to come, or a Wah sequel. Now, like I say, the fascinating and encouraging and wonderful thing about this book is that we learn about a king that is dedicated to his duty, dedicated to his role. We learn about a prince and princess of Wales who also are dedicated to their duty and dedicated to their role. And they will not be swerved off their path and, as they see it, their destiny. So I was left with the very secure feeling that the monarchy is in fantastic hands. So to summarise, this is a serious, beautifully detailed, well-written account of the first year of King Charles III's reign. And I highly recommend it. If you are going to add one book to your royal library this year, well, I don't know what's to be published, so something else stellar may come out, I would definitely buy this book. I would definitely enjoy this book. Even though I've heard the Audible edition of this book, I am going to definitely read it again via the text version. And you know what? I'm even going to buy the hardcover to add to my library to proudly display it, because I think it is a brilliant work, and it was a joy to read and a joy to bring the little bit of detail to you. Thanks a lot for joining me. Bye.